Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
You're learning Mishna Yevamos, Perek Yud, Chapter 10, Mishna Aleph, Mishna 1. Okay. Ha'isha shahalach b'ayla l'medinas hayam. A woman whose husband went to a foreign land. Uva'u va'amrula, and they came and they told her. I'm just reading the words. I'm just translating the words literally right now. Uva'u va'amrula, and they came and they told her, Meis balich, your husband died. V'nisas. So she went and she married somebody else. V'achar kach ba'bayla. Then after that, her husband showed up. Okay? Now, the Mishnah is going to say that in this case, she is basically penalized for the fact that she got married, So it's important to clarify what exactly the case of this Mishnah is. Although the Mishnah says the words, and they came and they told her, which is plural form, which sounds like more than one person came and told her, that's not what the Mishnah is talking about. The Mishnah is talking about, at least according to this Mishnah holds, that there is a difference between whether an Eid Echad, one witness comes, or two witnesses come. Now, you may wonder, don't you always need two witnesses for everything? And the answer is that in a very simplified explanation, oversimplified explanation right now, the way it works is that the sages said that a woman can get married based on the testimony of one witness. One witness who says your husband died is enough for her to be allowed to go ahead and marry and remarry. Now, it's not as simple as that, just because the sages said one witness is enough. It's actually a combination. One witness, who, if you think about it, if he comes and he says that the husband died, he better get his story right, because if the guy shows up, he's going to look pretty bad. So there's something very strong to this testimony, plus the fact that we say that after this witness shows up, this woman isn't just going to go get married right away. She's going to investigate herself. How's she going to investigate? I'm not sure. But she's going to investigate. She's going to check into it. So the combination of the one witness's testimony, plus the fact that she is going to investigate for herself before she agrees to remarry, that was enough for the sages to say that she can get married based on this. However, it is only one witness. And it is, again, it's not two witnesses. It's one witness, plus the fact that she checks. Well, if the guy showed up, then somebody didn't check very well. That's the assumption. She didn't check very well. And therefore, at the end of the day, although she was permitted to get married, if it's wrong, she's going to be penalized for it, because there's a certain lack on her part of what she was supposed to be doing. Let's say it's two witnesses that come and tell you this. Two witnesses come, and two witnesses say, he's dead. In that situation, the halacha will be according to this Mishnah, and as we'll say, according to, based on, I think it's based on another Mishnah too, and that is that if two witnesses come, two witnesses is the strongest proof you can have. If after two witnesses come and say that he died, he shows up, then she is called honest. It's beyond her control. It's as if she was violated. If a married woman gets violated, a married woman agrees to cohabit with another man, that's adultery. If somebody rapes her, that's not adultery. And in that situation, she can remain married to her husband unless he's a Kohen. So the question is here, in this case, when this woman was told she can marry, and then it came out that it was wrong, do we see her as unintentional? Because she's clearly unintentional. But she's not called honest beyond her control. Or is she called honest? So we're saying that if it's only one witness, she's only unintentional. It would be two witnesses should be considered honest, and that's beyond her control. And therefore, there would not be any of the penalties that are involved. Now, the Tanura says that actually that's not the halacha. From the Gemara, it's clear that the halacha is that in both cases, whether one witness or two witnesses show up, the penalty of this mission would be relevant. But our Mishnayos themselves, right, hold that this Mishnah holds that there is a difference between one witness and two witnesses. Okay, so now the guy shows up. What happens? Teitze mizeh umizeh. She must leave both of them. Now she's married to the second guy, right? The first guy's really alive. That means she was never married to the second guy. So she for sure has to leave him. But we say she has to even leave the first guy. She can go back to her first husband because we don't see her as honest. We don't see her as beyond their control. We see that if the guy showed up, that means she didn't check well enough, and therefore she was considered negligent, and therefore it's considered adultery. If it's adultery, then the halacha is that if a woman commits adultery, and then her husband divorces her husband dies, she's still not allowed to marry the person she committed adultery with. That's a Torah law. So in this case, we consider her an adulteress, and therefore she cannot marry these. She cannot go back to her first husband. Okay, now, utzricha get mizeh umizeh. She also needs a get. She needs a bill of divorce from each one. Now think about it. The first one, she's actually married to because he never died. But she's not allowed to go back to him, so he's got to give her a get, give her a divorce. The second guy was never married to her because it comes out the first husband was always alive. So the second marriage is really nothing. Nonetheless, if she wants to get married to somebody else, she cannot do so without a get from the second person. Next, the ein la ksuba, v'loi peiros, v'loi mezainos, v'loi belois, v'loi alzeh, v'loi alzeh. She doesn't get a ksuba. She doesn't get fruits. She doesn't get food. She doesn't get paid for her worn-out garments, and from either of them. From either of them, she does not get any of these things. Now, we talked about some of these things already previously, that when a man writes a ksuba to his wife, along with the ksuba, there are other benefits that come along. Now, in this case, we're saying no ksuba. Now, the second guy, she's not really married to, so of course no ksuba. The first guy she was married to, but at the end of the day, if we consider her an adulteress, she loses her ksuba. So so all the monies promised her in the ksuba, she doesn't get. She doesn't get the basic 200 zuz, or 100 zuz if she's not a virgin, nor does she get any other money that she promised her, which is different than we had before. V'loi peiros is no fruits. Now, fruits, again, was talking about a woman brings in property to a marriage, and we call them nechse melug, where the property remains her property, but the husband can use the fruits. He gets the benefits of eating the fruits. Okay, that's part of ksuba. Now, if there is no ksuba here, right, there's no obligation to pay ksuba, then we say like this, that even though it comes out that at a certain point of time, somebody shouldn't have been eating these fruits, right? Meaning the second husband, he was never married to her, right? Never really halachically married. So he really had no right to those fruits. Maybe he should pay her back? Nope. We say he doesn't have to pay her back. The first husband, at a certain point of time, once he becomes exempt from paying her ksuba, he also has no right to eat the fruits. And let's say he does, again, she cannot demand any kind of payment for them. V'loi mezainis, no food, no support. If at this point of time, he's supposed to be divorcing her, there's no obligation for ksuba, doesn't have to feed her, even if the situation was that while he was away, she borrowed money to go ahead and to support herself, which typically, in a regular case, if a husband goes away and she borrows money to support herself, when he comes back, he's got to pay the debt. In this case, because she was an adulteress, he doesn't have to. V'loi belois, worn out garments. These are garments that she brought into the marriage. He's allowed to use them. Okay? When you use them, they kind of get worn. And he used them to the point that they fell apart. Nothing left of them. Nothing left. So halacha is typically you have to pay her back then. If those garments are still intact, just give back the garments. But once they're done, he's got to pay her for it. Well, in this case, he will not have any of those obligations because of the fact that once she's an adulteress, she loses that right for that payment. And this applies to either one, to either husband. And even the second husband, who was never even really married to her, he doesn't have to take care of any of these things. And not the first one either. Now, imnat lemizeh mizeh. Now let's say she did take. She took. She took the money. She took the money for the worn out garments. She took suba money, whatever she took, but she wasn't supposed to. Imnat lemizam, she took from either one. Taxer, she got to give it back. She got to return it. Now, avalad mamzer mizeh umizeh, and any child born here is considered a mamzer. Now, if she has a child from the second husband, then that's understood. It's a mamzer. She was really married. She had a child with another man. The child's a mamzer. Halachically, if a man rapes a married woman and he impregnates her, child's a mamzer. That's just the way it is. That's the fact. That's the reality. Now, in this case, if the second husband has a child with her, child's a mamzer. What about the first one? Now, what do you mean the first one? If they had children before, there was nothing. What would be the matter? It means like this. It means if, let's say, after this, meaning after this whole story, right? After this whole story, that she's not allowed to go back to the first husband. They cohabit, and she becomes pregnant from him. Now, theoretically, it's her husband, right? It is her husband, halachically. But the sages said you're not supposed to go back to him. You're not supposed to go back, and you're not supposed to go back because we considered like you committed adultery, and therefore we penalized even further that if she were to have a child from the first husband after all this, rabbinically the child would be considered a mamzer. That's how serious this goes. Okay, we will continue this Mishnah tomorrow. All right, Chofetz Chaim. Okay. V'gam ein chilek b'isurai ben masiper hayil lefnei anoshim she'enam kreivav b'shalo ish misaper love or lefnei kreivav. Another example. Before talking about saying lashon hara to your wife, now we're talking about saying lashon hara to your relatives. Now, v'afilu, you cannot allowed to do that. Just because your relative doesn't say you can tell them anything you want. V'afilu ach al achiv eitzel aviv. Gam kein lashon hara gemurahi. A brother speaks lashon hara about his brother to his father. Okay, that's lashon hara. Now, let's say the reason you are speaking lashon hara about your brother to your father is, or any other relative, is so that they will then go and rebuke him for it. So you're doing it for a constructive purpose. You're doing it in order for them to rebuke. Still, you're not allowed to. Why? Because why are you speaking lashon hara? You have another option. Speak to him yourself. Go directly to him and speak to him. Why are you right away going ahead and spreading bad stuff about him? Unless you surmise that your rebuke isn't going to help, but your father's will or the other relatives will, then already we consider it not lashon hara. Then you're saying it for constructive purpose, and it's okay. But the point is that if you could deal with it yourself without having to spread it to others, you're not allowed to go ahead and spread it to others beforehand. You got to deal with it yourself. If then it doesn't happen, you go to others. Or if you surmise that yours is not going to help, but maybe theirs will, then you can go to others. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.